complain to when the guy you complain to is corrupt? How do you press charges against the criminal when the criminal is the one who is enforcing the law? That's the problem.
No, I get it.
Yeah, it's a big problem, and it's going to keep on continuing because the people will tolerate anything. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this week's edition of the Weekly Roundtable. I am one of your co-hosts, Frank Johnson, co-founder of the Liberty First Foundation, and to my right is my illustrious companion, Michael Marshall, also co-founder of the Liberty First Foundation, and to the screen below is Michael Vasquez, the Dragon of the Bronx, temporarily.
Go by political.
Greg,
political dragon.
working in a remote location from a secret, undisclosed bunker deep in the bowels of New York City.
Yeah. Okay.
I had to plagiarize Mark Levin for a quick second there, just to.
That works.
Mr. Producer.
Levin is
guys,
good.
it has been an action-filled, fun-filled, smoky fire-filled week of all kinds of innuendo, indictment, and inferno. What else is going on that you guys want to talk about this week? And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us again. Peter, hey yo, we see you over there in the comment section.
Yeah, Pete. No, we've been so, they are trying to distract us so much because it's Trump, indictment. How many times have I said since the beginning of this year on this program, I have publicly said, we're going to see 2, maybe 3 more indictments. Since I said that, we've had 2 more indictments. There's going to be 1 more indictment between now and January. And eventually they're going to find something to find him guilty of. And it's all a distraction because the only purpose is to get him to say that he is guilty so that they can then presume and say in all the media, he's guilty of everything. Because he's guilty of one thing. He's guilty of everything. He's an evil person. He can't be on the election. This is just red meat for the progressives. While that's happening, what else is happening in our nation? Bidenomics has failed completely by the standards and stipulations of the Democrats themselves. It has failed. You're paying more for everything. In addition to that, the thing that we were just talking about before the show started up, the thing that gets me upset, Biden is now endangering the United States once again. People may have forgotten. If you remember last year, 2022, Joe Biden decided that the most important thing for America in international politics is to get a black lesbian WNBA player back into America after she admitted to breaking the laws of a foreign country. That country happened to be Russia. Doesn't matter. She admits she broke their laws and knew she was breaking their laws, bringing drugs into Russia. She is an international drug trafficker. That's Brittany Griner. I'd mentioned the basketball team she plays for, except no one knows. No one cares. She's black and she's a lesbian. And so we had to get her back. And Joe Biden, in the brilliance of him and his team, decided that they would release Victor Bout, a name that most people don't know. Look at the movie Lord of War with Nicolas Cage. That's the real life story of the man we traded for this woman. And the day that we did it, there were civil wars starting in Africa, suddenly getting weapons that they never had before. We literally increased the global destabilization. We increased the number of civil wars in the world to make sure that Joe Biden would look good with the lesbian vote. And now, as everyone's again distracted talking about Trump, Joe Biden is paying for play. He's talking to Iran. He's going to pay them $6 billion. That is with a B, $6 billion to get 5 Americans. He's buying back 5 Americans who are illegally imprisoned in Iran. And we're going to get 5 people, so about $1.2 billion per person. and he will get the Iran nuclear deal. And he promises us that Iran this time won't use the money for terrorism.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Which is what they did the last time under the Obama administration, as admitted by John Kerry on January 16th on CNBC. He admitted to the world the Iran nuclear deal pays for global terror. And now we're about to do it again. And every nation knows, hey, you want to make a deal? Joe Biden needs good press. So all you have to do is capture an American, make a deal. He'll do whatever you want, roll over, and the world gets worse off. Am I wrong on any of this? Because I can show the news on it, but does anyone dispute this?
I don't think there's any disputing. But as we were talking before, it's you called it off air. Off air, you called it inept.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I said it's ideologically driven. It's up to the people to decide whether or not the motives and the things that this administration are doing are actually being done because they are stupid, or because it's part of a larger orchestrated, scheme to bring the United States to its knees. I believe it's the latter.
Yeah, but I'd say looking at the total of the Biden-Harris administration, looking at everything they've done, they are inept. It's indisputable. I don't care if you can be a Democrat, you can be a progressive, you can be a socialist, doesn't really matter, because you cannot point to anything that he has done that has been effective. The Inflation Reduction Act literally increased inflation. All the economists agree on this. It's not a question. It's not an opinion. It's not political. It's a fact. The numbers prove it. We see inflation is up. Every single policy he has put forth has worked out worse. And God help us, the only thing that has been worse than Biden trying to start a meeting internationally has been Kamala Harris talking to anybody, anywhere, where she makes it even worse. This is horrendous, people, and we're about to increase global terror. We're giving the world leading sponsor of terror $6 billion so they can go and try and kill America and Israel. People should be terrified right now.
Right. Well, but again, it's like, because the policies are a failure for America doesn't mean that he's inept. It's orchestrated. It's purposefully being done for the purpose of bringing us down. And if you're going to gauge success based on failure, they're pretty damn successful at what they're doing, because if their goal is to bring us down, they're doing it right. They're doing it right every single day. And as long as the media is going to be singing their praises because they're also part of the global community and they have the same ideological bent, they'll keep pumping into the American people that everything is wonderful when the whole friggin' country is burning down.
Yeah, and I get it, but I don't think they're that malicious. I don't think, partially because that would take a level of planning and organization and logistics they don't have. There's been no example of them having the capability to plan that far into the future.
They don't have to plan that far into the future. All they have to do is use the power of the executive branch, with that has been accumulated tenfold in the last 50 years. The executive branch is extremely, way too powerful than it has been. It's a disproportionate amount of authority that's been accumulated by the executive branch in this country. And as long as they have the power of the pen and they can do with their executive orders, and they have a split House and Senate, there's nobody that's going to stop them. And if you're ideologically driven, all right, these people right now are pretty much like capturing an alley cat in a corner. Okay. there's one thing on the horizon that could potentially stop them, and they're going to fight tooth and nail to prevent that from happening. But in the interim, they are going to claw, bite, scratch, hiss, spit, and do everything they possibly can within their power to do as much damage as they can, so that if they happen to lose control of the White House, if they happen to lose control of the House and the Senate, that the damage is so irreparable that 4 years of good policy can't turn it around. You know, if you look at it, you can only smash up a car so many times and do so much damage before you reach that threshold of saying it's irreparable. You cannot fix it. And even if you do, it's going to cost you so much time, so much money, and so much effort to try and repair what the damage is, that it's no longer worth what it was, even if you do bring it back to perfect condition. You've already expended to the point where the ends is not going to justify it. This is a concerted effort, and now you're just seeing it go on fast forward. That's all this is. It's fast forward.
I understand the reasoning, and we've had this discussion before, and I understand your point, and I do see the elements of what you're speaking about. I do, and call it naivete, call it my an element of optimism. I'm not known for being an optimist, but maybe this is me being an optimist in saying I would rather it be his ineptitude and the attempt of Democrats. They're looking too short-sighted and don't understand the consequences of what they're doing. But this is, everyone in Israel is aware and should be aware that this means Israelis are going to die. The British are going to die. Europeans are going to die because Joe Biden is going to celebrate getting 5 people back. We have 30,000 Americans in the world that are being tortured right now. That is a fact. It's not even an opinion. The CIA, the DOD, the Department of State have already come out. We know that there are some 5,000 Americans in Afghanistan alone. We just had the 2-year anniversary. The Taliban were parading all the vehicles that Joe Biden left behind, the Humvees, the armored vehicles. They were parading American weapons down the streets of Kabul, praising Joe Biden because he gave it all to them.
Right. And when you have the president turn around and say, "Don't believe your eyes, it's good." You are, I believe. Listen, I know that you're probably just as jaded as I am, and
yes,
it's okay. But I don't know if maybe not quite as jaded as, because I don't find that I have as much faith in any part of humanity anymore as I used to, because I've seen way enough of it to realize that the most disgusting creature on the face of the earth is the human being. Because there's so few redeeming qualities that you still ascribing to people that there's a good motivation that they have.
I don't even think it's a good motivation. I just don't think they're that dumb.
No, I think they're so much smarter than we're giving them credit for, and that they're so much more evil than we thought was possible. I really believe it. If we listen, if we were back in 1938 and you looked at the same policies and put a different uniform on the people that are in there today, you would not doubt the evil that was being represented. You would not doubt it. But because it's coming wrapped in an American flag, with the logo behind, the words are coming from the logo behind me. This is what we see. The art and the messaging. Because we see it wrapped in a familiar package, we don't want to ascribe nasty or evil motives to it. And I'm telling you, there's no way. You cannot screw up that badly by accident. It cannot be done. It can't be done.
It can. It's, again, think about it. Here's the evil of it. And I know I speak about this often when I do my weekly show every Sunday. I've been for 2 years now, I have not missed a single episode where I've not talked about the Americans that the Biden administration has abandoned. Not one show have I missed. We just had the 2-year anniversary. There are literally 5,000 Americans in Afghanistan alone that we know. Hundreds of them have been caught by ISIS and Al Qaeda and are being tortured as we speak, totally ignored by the Biden administration. We have 10,000 Americans abandoned in Ukraine, never to be spoken of again. We have 15,000 Americans in the Sudan this year, 2 months ago, in April, end of April, beginning of May, thrown away, 15,000. And he is spending $6 billion on 5 people. Mind you, I want every single American to come home. I do, except for the one guy who went to North Korea and defected. He can stay. I don't care. Let him live in North Korea. But other than him, everyone else, I want them to come home. I want them to be safe. We're spending $6 billion and we're getting 5 people. That doesn't make sense with 30,000 people in the wind, and he isn't going to spend 5 cents on them. He's not even going to spend the time to have one of his interns write a tweet about this to make the American people know that they're still alive. He's thrown away their lives. And that is the insanity of that, the depravity of that. At any other time in history, we would be running this president out of the White House in flames. This would be insane. This could never happen. And today we're seeing this. People, you should be terrified. There's a reason why people in Israel and Europe and the United Kingdom are terrified. This is going to lead to people dying around the world. It already is. We're seeing it in Africa. We're seeing it in Europe. We're seeing the increase in the attacks that are going on worldwide. And this is going to make it even worse. And I can't, it just insults me that we're so busy about Trump. Think about it. $6 billion for 5 people. There's 30,000 more people all in harm's way being tortured as we speak, confirmed by the U.S. government. And we don't give a shit. I don't understand. I can't understand that.
Okay, I want to bring something to light, and you've talked about this on the show a few times. Michael, how many Americans were left behind in Afghanistan?
No less than 5,000.
No less than 5,000.
No, confirmed no less than 5,000, possibly as many as 9,000.
Okay, do you know how many people, and these were people that voluntarily stayed behind?
No, they were left.
Vietnam?
Oh, in Vietnam?
Mm-hmm.
Americans?
Yep.
I believe. No, we didn't. As far at the moment of Saigon, when the last helicopter took off from the American embassy, we had gotten everyone out, as far as I recall.
Okay. There were actually 7,200 American civilians left in Vietnam, but these were people that were employed by the Department of Defense, and they voluntarily stayed behind to aid the South Vietnamese government in their battle for against communism.
I wouldn't call that. I wouldn't call that an abandonment.
Right.
That's a That's
no, I said left behind. I didn't say abandoned.
Okay, fair enough. I was thinking abandoned because there's a big difference between I volunteer to stay and the government said, figure out your own way home. Big difference. But, but I do see your point, but there's my difference between the two. You volunteered. I understand. You took a risk. We told them, screw you, deal with it.
Right.
And that's the evil of it. That's the evil of
what
we're seeing right now. But go ahead.
Now, as far as Americans that were actually left behind, not ones that volunteered, there were only 50 Americans left behind at the fall of Saigon.
You know what? That sounds realistic and accurate considering what we saw. And we're old enough We lived. I was alive then.
Well,
I was
we see,
alive when that happened.
we see,
Yeah, so was I.
see, Vess, that's the thing that you just said, is that you just shed light on my idea in your brain and how it actually you're hiding it from yourself
What?
because you just said when they told these Americans in Afghanistan, screw you, you said that is evil.
Yeah.
Why would you not assume that people that could take thousands of Americans and purposefully abandon them in another country wouldn't look at what they're doing to the rest of us and the rest of the country and what losses we're going to face on a global scale and say, you know what? It's all an acceptable loss for the greater good, for our greater good. We've heard that term, the greater good, when we talk about communism, and
Yeah.
what they do is you said it yourself, evil. What
Well-
they're doing, this is not a matter of being inept. This is not a matter of being inept. It's a purposeful destruction.
The reason why
Everything.
but let me explain my reasoning, because you make a great point. And yes, except the only reason why I don't think that's the case, or at least I'm not making that connection, is what they're doing to America on American soil is shooting themselves in the foot. The Americans overseas, they're hidden from everyone. The news media, the American news media, because we're still getting reports from BBC, Times of Japan, the Hindustan Times. There's still international reporting on these Americans and what's happening, around, whether it's in Afghanistan, Ukraine, Sudan. There's still conversation. It's just not being reported by MSNBC or the Times or ABC News. We know this is the reality. They're just not, they have that firewall. They have that protection. It's away from us. They're shooting someone else in the foot overseas. They're shooting themselves in the foot here in America. And I don't think they may be evil to someone away from them that they don't know, that they don't care about, because they have zero empathy. And the people who say, but you don't understand, Biden's so empathetic, he's everyone's grandpa. Ask the people of Maui how empathetic he is. Ask the people of East Palestine, Ohio, how empathetic the Democrats and the Biden-Harris administration, ask them how empathetic they are, because it's crap. You can't tell me they're empathetic and look at those two situations alone and tell me, oh yeah, look at the compassion on display. No, the humanity. Come on, folks. This is. Oh,
Well, listen,
you know how I'm good.
you don't ever have to lie to cover mistakes. You
Yeah.
lie to cover misgivings. There's a difference between the two. You make a mistake, you say I'm sorry, you can move on, you can correct it. But when they don't even apologize
No,
for what they're doing to the American people, you got homeless veterans killing themselves in the streets. Veterans that do have homes killing themselves.
Yeah.
We have a VA that's destroyed. There's children in this country that are starving right now.
Yeah.
We're importing millions and millions and millions of illegals.
Yeah.
By the year,
Well,
Americans are losing their lives.
This is
This is not something that it was a mistake. They never ever actually make a mistake, but the media wouldn't have to cover it if it was a mistake.
this
The
was all
media
predicted.
because they're complicit.
This is all predicted.
By who?
Ayn Rand.
Don't say Nostradamus.
Ayn Rand. She
Well,
predicted it in 1957.
Yeah.
The details are a little different, but literally everything that is laid out in Atlas Shrugged
Mhm.
is what we are witnessing today.
Yeah. It is. It's again. There are levels of. None of this is surprising to me.
Right, and you also remember that the big people that are pulling the strings behind all of this stuff, they're not Americans. They
No,
have
they're
no
not.
love for America. They have their whole agenda in life. Their whole thing is global conquest, and the only thing that stands in their way is America and the alliance that we have with our allies, the democratically elected, governments around the world that are aligned with the United States. When you look at what's that? Who's the what do you call it? The Count Dracula guy there, Soros.
Soros. Mhm.
All right. You look at Soros. You look at all the people on the World Economic Forum. These are the wealthiest people on the face of the earth, and the only thing that's stopping them from gaining complete control over everything is the United States. If the United States is a healthy nation,
Well,
if we're a healthy nation, they can't do it. The only way they can do what they want to do is to take this country down. And when they have people in place that play to their ideology, it's not a matter of ineptitude. This is planned. This is planned, and this is just this. Like I said, I've said the Democrat Party. I can't even call them the globalists. Are the masters of the long ball. They've been trying to do this for 100 years, and now it's in fast forward. Now they're trying. They're not going to stop now. They're not going to stop. Hell or high water. There's nothing. There's nothing they're going to stop at
No,
this point.
I agree with you.
Their goal is too close. It's too close in hand for them to give up now. And it's
here's something I want you guys to think about.
Yeah.
Whenever the Democrats mention their wealth tax and how the billionaires aren't paying their fair share, what are the names that always come up?
the Koch brothers,
Yeah.
Who else?
Trump.
Yeah.
Who else?
That's pretty much it. Those are the big names they stop at.
Yeah, for them that's the corporation.
Elon Musk. I mean, they mention him too, but realistically,
He's only a recent target of theirs because of Twitter. Before the Twitter thing, he was one of them. He was one of their friends.
And who's the Amazon guy?
Bezos. He's on there.
Jeff Bezos.
Bezos
He's
is
on
with
that
them.
side too. They'll use his name because he'll let them because he's got enough money that he don't care.
He
Right.
owns the wash. He owns.
But here's the names you don't hear:
Yeah.
Rothschilds.
Rothschild, Vanderbilts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They stay out of this stupidity. They don't deal with this level of. This is
No, they don't.
way
They don't
below
have
them.
to. They don't have to.
They're the ones pulling the strings. That's why you never hear anything about them.
Well, look at Klaus Schwab.
Yeah.
Look at the Klaus Schwab family tree.
Yeah.
Okay, it's the Rothschild family tree. It's just under a different name now. It's a different branch, but it's still the same tree. The roots are all the same. The roots are all the same. The names change. The names change because they're fluid. Because people get married, then the last names change. This and that. They're all branches of the same tree.
The Rothschild. Wait a minute. We're getting a little bit into conspiracy theory, but
No, we're not getting into conspiracy. We're getting into truth of the matter when you start looking at the
I
people
don't think
that are in the World Economic Forum.
No,
you look
no,
at the
no,
people who have
but
the
I don't
money
agree.
to
I don't
strings.
agree that the Rothschilds or the Hearst family or they have been so well diversified. They are so well employed. They have better means of being able to affect the economies of the world and industries than to deal with this low level and detrimental political structure. They do well because they stay just outside of the limelight, adding influence in different directions without actually directly being involved because they don't need to. They want the structures to exist. They could have taken power many decades ago, centuries ago. They've had that kind of power. They've had that money and influence. That's not what they want. They want to remain where they are. And destroying the United States doesn't let them stay where they are. It introduces the very thing that would destroy them. It brings in socialism and communism. They won't survive that. They're not going to maintain their power, their influence, or their lives if we keep trying to move forward.
Yeah, but socialism and communism does not affect the top tier. Socialism and communism is only good for the low lives. It's only good for the little people. The people who are at the top of the power structure in socialism and communism do absolutely fine. They do
They're
wonderful for
protected.
themselves.
Yeah,
They're insulated from it because it's everybody below them.
yeah, but
They
the
still
structure-
wind up running
Because
it.
they're the one- they are the bourgeois.
yes, they're the modern day
Okay.
bourgeois.
They are the ones that make the rules for all the peons.
Yeah,
And they control everything. And it is balanced towards them where they take and implement policies, they implement things that hurt businesses, corporations, and et cetera below them in order to increase their gains.
I don't think
And I'm not talking just monetary gains, I'm
I
talking
understand.
gains in power.
I understand, but they already
I mean,
have it. They're
a
not
perfect-
gaining anything. They already have
Yeah, they are.
all of that. They're
but
not getting more power. They're losing it.
no, they're
Well,
not.
they're not losing power.
They don't lose it. They consolidate it. Because what happens when you have 20 or 30 different groups of people that accumulate all of this at the top tier, at the top level, they are so well insulated and so well protected, and they have so much power and authority, even amongst their own like, that they have what the Russians in the United States had for the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s was mutually assured destruction. They can do enough damage to one another that they're just happy to have what they have, and they'll just split the pie up, and nobody else gets anything else. They're happy to do it. You're not one group of multi-billionaires is not going to take out a group of another multi-billionaires. They have enough. They just don't want us to have the say where we jeopardize all of them, where all of them get jeopardized.
I've heard these theories and I understand the reasoning behind it, but I don't see it. I see it being counterproductive because if you align a mass of people towards socialism, especially communism, and its purpose, its tenets, regardless of who's in control, if you are making believers, true believers, look at what happened with Mao, the Red Book, the children destroying their parents. That is the kind of anarchy that is only countered by the kind of anarchy that you see in Iran, which is religious fanaticism. And those two elements are, one, destructive to any form of freedom, but it's also destructive towards any type of capitalism, any type of commerce. It is self-destructive at levels that are insane. We're talking about creating literally 3 regional wars simultaneously. We're talking about World War III. We're talking about destroying and rewriting the entire world. I mean,
Right.
all of the lines getting rewritten if they
Right.
continue in that pattern. And I don't see how that could be beneficial to any,
All right, let
whether
me
it's
ask
the
you a question.
Rothschild or anyone else.
Let me ask you a question. If what we're saying is true
Yeah.
and it were to come to fruition, whose shoes would you rather be in? Yours or theirs?
Well, if you're asking me, would I rather be a Rothschild than, a guy who just lost his house?
Look, they work. They're playing a game that we can't understand the rules because they write the rules for themselves. And as long as they are looking at the one world government where they're all in charge of it.
Yeah,
That's
and I
people
don't.
stay around the table, and that's the way it is.
I
And
understand that, but
every government has their puppets in it.
I understand that. I don't disagree with elements of it. I just think, and perhaps it's my perspective, I would like to think that they would have the same perspective that it is they endanger their control and reduce their control by ushering in more socialism, more communism, more fanatical religious zealots. That actually is counterproductive to their stability. And that's why ultimately, that's why I don't think it works.
Not because they can localize that.
You can't localize religion. You can't localize zealotry. You can't. It's a flame that burns on its own. It is independent of anything and everything else. That's why we see so many Islamist radical zealots out there. They blow themselves up. You can't get more zealotous and more irrational than saying, I'm going to die for my God. You can't beat that. You can't stop that. You can't control that. It is irrational to the greatest. It is irrational to the point of insanity, and that's why I don't. While I do see the WEF, the WEC, World Economic Forum, the World Economic Council, I do see them having a large influence in things that we see coming out of the UN. The UN is basically their puppet tool, like NATO is the tool of the United States. They manipulate that. That's why we get to see that suddenly they're now turning around. And even though every country in the world says children must be protected, children cannot consent to have sex with adults, that suddenly the UN reverses their course this year and suddenly comes out. And remember, it was the report in March that they came out with and said, oh, by the way, suddenly we decided that, kids can have sex. They can consent all of a sudden, even though every law in every nation in the world says that's just illegal and immoral. I could see them forcing that hand. But some of this other stuff, I just see it being absolutely detrimental. And we can stop this. Just so people know, no matter how far you take this, for the people who are saying, well, that's conspiracy theories, or people who are saying you're missing the boat, I want you to understand, throw all that away. We can stop Biden with what he is doing. There is no question what he has done has hurt America. There is no question that he has lied to Americans on a repeated, continuous basis with the support of the mainstream media. The evidence is there. If you read international news, it is all credible. And the ultimate answer is we can replace them and put America in better footing. We just need to do it.
Yeah. Well, you show me how.
We got to vote. We have to vote. We have to show up. And I don't mean 6 out of 10 people actually vote, which has been the historical average during presidential elections, and then 4 out of 10 when it comes to the midterms. I mean, we need the next 4 to 8 years of people showing up at every election at the local, state, and federal level, that every election every year is at 8 out of 10 people are voting in every election, and clean house, top to bottom, local to federal, all the way.
All right. Well, but I think I have a better chance of sprouting wings and a tail and a friggin' unicorn horn and flying around because I don't think people have even the slightest grasp of how bad things are right now and how bad they could be, and they do not give a shit.
And they don't understand the road that we're going down. They plain and simply don't, because I don't do politics.
Yeah, they're entertained and they're distracted.
Yeah, but politics is doing us all dirty and without warning.
For all the people out there who complain that they can't get laid, congratulations, your government is screwing you every day.
Yeah.
And you just sit back and take it.
Yeah, and that's what you get when you say, I don't do politics. Well, politics is doing you. I don't get involved. It doesn't matter. You're already involved. You don't get a choice on that. When Biden's out here spending $6 billion to get 5 Americans.
It doesn't affect me. Why should I worry about it?
Well, how much are you paying for milk right now? How much are you paying for eggs? How much is meat? It's called inflation. He just printed $6 billion. Guess what? Everything you buy just went up. They raised the debt ceiling to $35 trillion. Guaranteed you that what everyone should have taken away from that is we just guaranteed that inflation will increase 7.5% by January 1st of 2025. They just guaranteed you that the price of everything you own is going up 7.5%. That's what you get to take away from that. People are not paying attention. These are the details. God, what happened? We stopped teaching English comprehension. We went down this road of ebonics. We went down this road of Twitter. Text English instead of real English. We dumbed down the system, and we are getting beat over the head because of it.
Long ball. It's
I get
ball.
it. I get it.
Long ball.
I get it, Frank. I do. I do get that. It's just.
You know what my problem is? I just don't have faith in the people anymore.
And here's the funny thing: on this,
it breaks my heart to say it, but it's true. I just don't have faith in the people anymore.
no, I don't either.
People getting up and doing anything to wake themselves up and to be part of the system. I don't see it happening.
Here's the thing that I find extremely interesting.
Mm-hmm.
How they've touted for what? Okay, ever since we've been alive, go to school, go to college, get a good paying job. Okay, those were the keys to success. Okay, and it was always go to college, go to college, go to college, go to university, go to college, go to college.
Yeah.
Okay? Right now, we have the highest rate of college admissions and college graduates, but yet our overall intelligence in the United States is on decline.
Because they're not learning. When we went to college, the purpose of college wasn't singularly get a job. It was get an education. There's a difference. There's a big difference between those things, which I think has been lost somewhere around 2000, where we suddenly, I think Obama really made it clear when he was talking about the community colleges that every kid has to go to community college, and we have to be a service economy, not a manufacturing economy. We transitioned from understanding that an education is the key to being able to have a good life, because if you're educated, you can then make critical choices. You can critically think through every situation. That's why a liberal arts degree used to be worth something. Why? Because it meant that you could evaluate different aspects of information and to filter it and be able to use it to your advantage. That's what an education was for, to be able to have the knowledge, to be able to innovate, to be able to think through things. And now we're not there for an education. We're there for, remember this. This is your job. This is how you do your job. Hold your head down and do just this thing. We have made it tunnel vision. We have made it about rote memorization. We've made it about filling a slot that has been pre-assigned to you based on what category you fill. Again, it goes back to equity. You are the categories that you have filled. Oh, you went to college. Fantastic. And you have this slot that goes for your race, your color, your gender, your sexual preference, and you had this degree. You fill this slot. This is what you do. Shut up. Keep your head down. Don't speak about it again. And that destroys, and that is destroying the cornerstone of the foundation of America. And we need to get back to manufacturing. So, you know how many kids these days? They're so busy, especially now that we just went through 2020. We just went through the lockdown, and we have entire industries now that do nothing except deliver everything. Kids aren't cooking anymore. They don't know how to cook. They order food. They go Uber, and the food comes to them already cooked. They don't know how to cook. They're paying 3, 4, 5 times. They're paying as much as what you could, the tip that is mandated on those deliveries is as much as it would cost to just buy the raw food and cook it yourself. And they don't know how to do that. They're not self-sufficient.
All right. Caveat. Every now and then I'll order Chinese.
Right.
Got a pretty good Chinese place about 3 miles from the house. Good food. comes they deliver it real quick.
Mhm.
A lot of times I'm home late, or especially while I couldn't walk and I couldn't drive, I was having food delivered every so often. I said to Lori the other night, I said, I'm going to order some Chinese. She says, well, it's late. Are you going to have it delivered? I said, nah, I got to run to the store. I got to get milk and I got to get bread and whatever else. Chinese place is right next door to the supermarket. I'll order Chinese, go pick up the milk, pick up the Chinese, and I'll bring it home. My Chinese restaurant has an app. You order everything online now. And then what they do is they call you back to verify that it was you that placed the order. In most cases, if I'm going to have it delivered, they call back for the credit card number. You fill out the whole thing and you put the gratuity in there and everything else. Good, because the delivery fee is $3, but they get, you want to tip the driver. So naturally, like the line from My Blue Heaven, I tip everybody. I never have a problem giving a tip. My mother was in the service industry. I have waited for quite a few tables and tended quite a few bars in my day, so I know how important the tip is. I'm never stingy when it comes to the tip. But I go to the app. Well, hold on. I go to the app the other night, and I said, I'm going to order Chinese. I put the order in, and it says takeout or delivery. And it says I'm going to walk in. I hit the walk in. The app would not process the order for me until I selected a tip amount. For me to pick up my own fucking food.
Yeah.
15, 18, 20, or custom. And when you hit custom, it starts at 15. And I said, wait, I have to put in a tip to go pick up my own food.
Yep.
Now, whenever I go in and I happen to walk into the place and place my order, there's a tip jar on the counter. I always, put a couple of bucks in there for that purpose. I also don't ever like tipping on the credit card because I know there's a lot of places that make sure that the tip doesn't ever get to the person who it's supposed to get to.
Yeah.
So a lot of times when I go out to a restaurant, I will tip 0 on the credit card slip if I'm having to use it, and I will tip in cash to the server.
Yeah.
Because this way I know the server is getting what they're supposed to get, and then some.
Yeah,
But now I can't even process my order to go without being mandated that I have a tip. I said, are you shitting me? I said, I told Lori, I says, we're not going to that Chinese place anymore. She was, well, where are we going to go? We got no place else to go. There's no other Chinese place local. I says, well, I guess we ain't eating Chinese no more.
That's the choice. And
I deleted the app off my phone and I won't go to the place anymore. I won't walk into the place. I have no problem. Believe me when I tell you, my usual tip is 25 to 35%. I'm very generous when it comes to people with their tips. I try to put my order in the right way. I stage everything the right way. I make it as easy as possible as I can for the server because I know the table next to me is probably a bunch of assholes that stiffed them after making them, run 65 trips back and forth to go get water and bread and all the rest of the stuff. So I try to compensate for it. Peter will attest in the comment section.
Yeah,
he's with me more than anyone else on the face of the planet. But if you're going to tell me what, then don't even say it's a tip.
No, it's a fee.
Right,
it's
right
just
in there.
Fee.
Tips, no tips required, and then jack the price up by 20%. Because don't tell me what I have to do with. What if the food sucked? What if my delivery didn't get here till 20 minutes after it was supposed to? What if the guy dropped half my friggin' order in the driveway? What if I got all the wrong food?
Yeah.
Now I'm stuck on a tip on bad delivery, on bad service, on bad food. Why am I getting charged mandatorily for something that you can't guarantee? You can't guarantee the quality or the time or the speed or the accuracy until it's at my door or it's in my hand. How are you going to mandate that I have a tip for you if you haven't even earned it yet?
Because
And people right now have gotten to the point where we've gotten so tip heavy in this country, especially since COVID, because you had a lot of people that, okay, well, there's no more indoor dining. So the servers were losing their jobs, didn't have no money, didn't have no income because they didn't have anybody dining. That everybody was saying, okay, I'm going to up my tip because I'm not utilizing the services of the restaurant. Well, the restaurant also has a lower overhead now because he's not paying for the dishwashing service. He's not paying for the lights. He's not paying so much the heat or the air conditioning. He's not throwing away the menus, the paper towels, or the rest of that silly crap with it. So it's saved them money. We paid more, and now they got so used to it that now that every place is open for business again, that the tip has become a part of the check
yes,
instead of being an option.
because it's just like laws. They never take anything away. They just add more. So, and people accept it. Again, it goes back to my problem is not just the tip is a problem, but my problem is we have a generation that we are raising. We have generations that are watching the current generation, and they are, I can't say useless. They're incompetent. They can't cook, and they think it's a problem to cook. It's a burden to them to actually go shopping themselves and then to cook afterwards. I'm 55. I've been cooking for myself for 40 years. And I'm looking at these guys who are these college students. I'm like, when I was in college, me and my friends would get together. We'd have a whole night where we do the whole pizza and we do spaghetti, and everybody put the money together because we're all poor college students, and we make a huge meal that'll last the whole week that everyone just put in a couple of bucks, and we all stood around together and cooked because every single one of us could cook. It's not 1950. It wasn't just the women. It was the guys. Everybody could cook. And nowadays, we no longer have women cooking. We don't have guys cooking. We have no one cooking.
Okay.
Well, if you look at the price of groceries,
hold on a second. Okay, I'm going to interject here. I've been trying for the last 15 minutes to do this.
Go.
Okay, so let me have a chance.
Go for it.
Okay, there is a big reason why this is getting out of control. Okay, and there's study after study after study on this, and especially here recently. And this is when we started seeing a lot of this stuff happening where people couldn't cook and so forth. Okay, critical thinking has basically ceased to exist. Okay, the foundation for critical thinking says this. Okay, the question and issue, what the current state of critical thinking and what is current thinking? What is the current state of critical thinking in higher education? Studies of higher education demonstrate three disturbing but hardly novel facts. Most college faculty at all levels lack a substantive concept of critical thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Most college faculty don't realize that they lack substantive concept of critical thinking and believe they sufficiently understand it and assume they are already teaching students it.
No.
Lecture, rote memorization, and largely ineffective short-term study habits are still the norm in college instruction and learning today.
Yeah. Goes to my point.
Okay. Back in the day when we learned how to cook and learned how to do basic maintenance on our vehicles and learned basic life skills.
Sewing.
We were also being taught how to think innovatively, how to think and come up with solutions on our own, not just memorize for a test, but we're taught how to find answers. how to actually think, how to use our skills and our experiences to come up with solutions. None of that's taught anymore. Okay, at any level. And that is what is a big part of the decline that we are seeing today. Okay, that's also a big part of why so many people feel ineffective at being able to do stuff. That's another reason why people feel like they aren't able to do anything. Why they've lost control is because we don't teach critical thinking anymore. We don't. Okay. Honestly, probably our generation is probably the last that were sufficiently taught any type of critical thinking skills or any type of research skills. Okay. The generations that are coming up after us, the ones that are actually starting to become the majority and the ones that are impacting everyday lives are the ones that haven't been taught these skills.
Yeah.
And honestly, I believe that is by design in a lot of instances. Okay, because if you have a population that cannot critically think, they can't understand what is actually happening without being told, without being given a list to memorize. They don't understand it. They don't get it. Okay, that's why you see a lot of the younger generations that get stuck on nothing more than talking points. When you try to get them to expand beyond talking points to actually defend their positions, they don't know how to. Okay, and I don't care which side it is on.
True.
They don't understand the core issues because all they are taught is the talking points. Okay, what they need to memorize for the test.
True. Yeah, I agree with you on that. That's the core problem. You're right. They don't, and this is how you can get away with mandated tips. You can get away with not having a generation that can cook for themselves, that can do their own sewing. Yeah, I can sew. I'm miserable at it, but if I have to hem a pair of pants so I can go into a meeting, I can do it. I'll get through the meeting. It'll be hemmed. It won't be great, but it'll be done.
Hell, I can fold a fitted sheet.
Yeah, but guess what? Men and women today, younger ones, can't do any of that. And I'm astounded constantly when I talk to these kids in college today. I'm like, what do you mean you can't do that? It's basic. This isn't like, we're not talking about skill. I'm talking about take the needle, the thread, make the hem. We're done. And they're like, I can't do that. Yes, you can. You just never have. You never tried. You didn't know you should. This is the problem. And when we made that change, and this is part of what happens when you change from a manufacturing economy into a service economy.
Even a service economy.
Huh?
It's even shifting over to a service economy. Okay. People that provide services still need to be able to think critically because they are the ones providing solutions.
Well, theoretically.
And if they can't think critically, how can they provide an adequate solution?
Depends on the service that you're providing. They're not providing services that require thought. They're providing services that just are mundane. It's just to keep things going. Yeah. Everyone should have one of those. Multi-purpose, useful for everything.
Everybody should be able to identify one.
Mm-hmm.
It's
90% of people under the age of 18 have no idea what that is.
You're kidding me. 90%.
No idea.
Really?
And even if you showed them what it is and told them what it is, they'll say, oh, okay. And then you say, can you use it? Majority of them, even more so, have no idea how to use it.
That reminds me of that I guess video clip.
Oh, for
Of
those listening, that was a can opener.
yeah, but it reminds me of this. I saw a video clip of two kids, teenagers, like 12, 13, right in there, and they had an analog phone, and they didn't know what to do. Analog phones. For those who don't know what that is, that's the rotary dials. You see the old phones and older movies. You see, and the dial goes round and round. Yeah, analog phones. They don't know how to use them.
God
No
help they had a
clue.
crank one.
Huh?
God help if they had a crank one.
Oh God, then they'd really be lost. But these are all elements of the same root problems, which is why we see the problems with Bidenomics. It fails because it's failing at the core. It fails at everything. You cannot do the modern monetary theory. You can't just keep printing money and assuming it never catches up or that it has no impact. That lie does not work. It's the main reason. Why are the poor getting poorer? Because they can't keep up with inflation, especially since we don't take the time, again, back to the education, we don't teach finance. I was having this argument with someone recently about the black community. And black people, oh, well, we're being oppressed. We're being oppressed by the white guy. No. You know what the problem is? We don't teach black kids how to invest in the stock market. We tell them to go and buy a pair of Adidas. We see the commercials, the videos.
Go buy a gold chain.
Yeah, they'll go buy a gold chain. They'll go and buy Adidas. They'll go and buy Kobe's new sneaker or whatever the clothing line is. They're busy spending
Latest NBA jersey.
Yeah, and they're spending $500 on a jersey and jeans. Are you kidding me? Invest the money. Don't know how to do that.
And it's just like these. Okay, I know you know what this is, Michael.
Yeah. It's perfect. 1950s. They started using those in 1950s.
They're still using them when we were in.
Yeah.
I had a glimmer of hope because I asked the young guy not that long ago. I said, "Do you know what the P-51 was?" And he says, "The can opener or the Mustang?" I was like, "Oh my God, there's a little salvation out here." The guy goes, "All right, so he knows planes and can openers."
Mm-hmm.
This kid's gonna go places.
Yeah, and for people who are watching this and going, I still don't get what that is. It's a can opener. It's a military can opener.
Yeah, it's a little folding can opener you put on your keychain so you can open up your MREs.
Yeah.
Or your cans before the MREs came in a pouch.
Sea rats.
Yeah.
Okay, and sea rats were still in circulation when Michael and I were in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Stuff made in 1940s. It's still, you could probably still eat the sea rats. You could still eat today.
Mm-hmm.
I still have a case of them.
Yeah, that stuff will be good forever. It will be good
As long as the cans don't get dented.
Yeah, the can doesn't get dented. Some ancient in the future, they're going to do a excavation dig, and they're going to find a bunch of sea rations and be like, "What's this?" Open it up. It's still good.
Okay, sea rats will actually last longer than MREs.
Oh yeah, but MREs are bad for you. They dehydrate you. I mean, that's part of the dumb. Yeah, here's an idea. We have our troops. They're running around with 60-pound packs. They've got a 10-pound.
It's more than 60 pounds now.
Well, of course, but think about it. Just think of the old packs. You got your 60-pound pack. You got your M16 fully loaded, which makes it about 10 pounds when you add in extra clips and everything. So you got a 10-pound. Huh?
What the hell did you just say?
M16 dry weighs exactly 8.61 pounds.
You called it a clip.
Did I say that? Men Magazine.
God.
No, I said, and carrying the clips and everything else.
Right,
Talking
what
about the
clips?
accessories. No, I
Carry
carry.
them on Garans anymore.
No. Well, magazines, yes. But I'm talking about the magazines, and you're talking about the clips. I understand. I know what you mean. Anyway, the magazines. Yes, the language has been so common, it just throws off everyone. But so you're carrying that around with you, which is going to make you sweat if you, and anyone in the military knows, yeah, I don't care what the temperature is. You hump about 10 miles with that, and you're going to sweat a bit. You're going to be tired. And now you get to stop, eat, and you're eating something that's going to dehydrate you even more. Yeah, that's brilliant planning. That won't make people fall out in the middle of a long march.
Well, during Iraq and Afghanistan, the infantry and Marines
Mhm.
typically carry between 60 and 120 pounds of gear.
Yeah, I mean, if you're carrying the Prick 77, if you're a radio man, machine gunner, and
Their battle rattle
Yeah.
is over 43 pounds on its own.
Really,
Yeah.
what are
The
they?
flak jacket, the helmet
The flak jacket. Yeah, that adds
is
on.
around 43 pounds.
Yeah, and then you throw the pack on. Then you get the ammo.
Yeah.
Radio man's got the radio. You got the machine gunner A and B. They've got their extra gear.
Now, the radios are a lot lighter than what they used to be.
Yeah, but the 77, well, at least
They don't use the Prick 77 anymore.
I know when I was in, they were just getting the 77s in. Now they got a new thing. I don't even know what it is now.
Mm-hmm.
Tells you how long ago I was in. But it's still, you're adding to the pack. You're adding to everything. So again, you're going to sweat. And now the MRE is dehydrated food. It's going to absorb your water from your body. It's not a smart plan.
You got to make it wonder how much efficiency have we traded away for over preparedness in technologies?
We're not over prepared though.
No, but I mean, our technologies that we're giving these folks, once we send them out there, and you're saying anywhere between 70 and 120 pounds, these guys are carrying around with them. How much of that fast-moving infantry style action have we traded away so they could carry things on their person?
Too much.
There's so much of it that you're not using it at the moment. You shouldn't have them on you.
One EMP and half the gear is going to be useless.
Yeah.
One EMP.
And they actually are finding that out in some theaters.
Yeah, and you can localize the EMP. All you got to do is take out a transformer. You take out your local transformer, electric transformer. That's going to be a mini EMP, depending on how you take it out, and that's going to knock out your communications. So with a radio, depending on the radio, if it's analog, then you're down, and then you just bring the system down, bring it back up, and you're broadcasting again. But if I have something with all these computer chips and crap in it, your radio's down, you're dead. It just fried your circuits. You're not broadcasting anymore. I don't care what you try and do because they don't got
anything that's silicon based.
Yeah.
Can be destroyed with an EMP.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything that's tube based will survive an EMP.
Right.
Well, a lot of the stuff that our guys are carrying now, the military has prepared for some of that stuff because now everything.
They've shielded it.
Well, you have a lot of stuff that's being carried in flexible Faraday cages.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the things are Faraday lined. But again, if you have something go off while you're using the thing that you're using, it's not protected. It's only protected if it's in a Faraday cage being protected, and if you're not using it, why are you carrying it?
Well, yeah.
Well, it also depends on if that Faraday cage is properly grounded.
It also depends on whether or not the Faraday cage gets shot, gets dumped in the mud, falls down a ditch, you went through the river or the ocean. This is a silly idea to me. You know what? When I was in, you know what we learned to do? Make your own antenna. Why? Because you may not be able to. Sometimes you don't want to put up an antenna and sniper flag Hello, that's the communications guy. Or maybe it got destroyed because your vehicle got hit, or you ran into a ditch, or got floated down a river or across an ocean. You still got to make communications. And they taught, I know when I was in, we learned, okay, and this is how I figure out what frequency do I need. This is how I make that antenna. And there's a process for that. I don't think you can do that now with the digital. Digital will not accept that external antenna like that.
Yeah, well,
Will it?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, antenna technology hasn't changed.
I wasn't sure with the way that they have them configured, especially since it's doing the encrypt, decrypt.
Okay. Yeah, the antenna technology hasn't changed other than when we start getting into what's called MIMO,
Yeah.
multiple in, multiple out.
Yeah.
And that's basically all that means is that you just have more antennas.
Well, it's kind of a mux. We used to call that a mux. Multiple
But
in.
you have multiple in, multiple out. And that just increases the number of antennas. Okay. And what that is good for, especially in digital communications, is increasing the amount of communications that are able to be had passed per second. Okay.
Right.
Number of bits per second. The more antennas you have, in theory, the more bandwidth that you are capable of.
Right. And you split the bandwidth and you can go through more channels within that same bandwidth. Yeah, we were doing part of that back in 86, 87, that time period.
But here's the bad thing on today's battlefront is everything is put together on what's called ad hoc networks. And when you lose those ad hoc networks, you lose the ability for your command and control structure. And that's the big problem with a lot of what's going on. And that's one of the reasons why in the Marine Corps, you and I were taught, okay, as a private, basic leadership skills.
Yeah.
So that no matter what happened on the battlefield, you still had a contingency that could lead and carry on with the mission.
Yeah. Another man's job for the job above you, and depending on your rank, the one below you.
Right. Yeah, you always need the job above and below.
Yeah.
But not only that, okay, you were given just the basic premises of leadership.
Yeah.
Okay, what it took to be a leader. Okay, beans, bullets, and band-aids for logistics, stuff like that.
We've it's amazing because so much of what we have lost so much because we have so dehumanized these next generations. We've taught them to not think critically, which means we taught them not to think. If you're not thinking, you can't speak. Language is just a verbalization of the internal thoughts. If you cannot think of the words, if you don't know the meanings of the words, you don't have those thoughts. Those thoughts do not exist because they cannot be conveyed. And so that is a function of speech, is a function of thought. If you control the speech, you control the thought. We have generations that don't know how to be self-sufficient. They don't understand the logistics of being self-sufficient. They understand the concept of it. Everything is outsourced. And at the same time, there's nothing personal about it. We've taken away the connections. People don't go out anymore. They don't go out the way they used to go out. They don't speak to each other the way they used to. We don't talk on phones. We text each other. We email each other. We don't really have these conversations anymore. Level. These are problems that compound on each other. Go ahead.
And here's trend. Okay, we've already talked about critical thinking.
Yeah.
Okay. Another thing that is huge on a huge decline in the United States and actually across the world is vocabulary.
Yeah.
Okay. We're losing our math skills as well. Okay. Um, our science skills. Okay. We always say trust the science. Well, when I was
No,
in school being taught science, I was always taught question the science.
that's the whole purpose of science. Ask the question. There's
Okay.
always a question.
Because just because something was a theory didn't mean it was true. It
Right.
means it was an accepted thing until proven false. But you were still questioning it. Questioning it. You didn't accept it as fact. Okay. And the biggest thing was to try to disprove your thought processes. Try to disprove whatever you're okay.
Does the theory
We're
have a
trying
critical
to
fail? Does it have a critical fail in it? If it does, make a new theory. If it doesn't, we can accept it until we find a critical
or
fail.
adapt your current theory.
Right. Exactly. Mhm.
Okay. And we're not doing that. Instead, we are coming up with the conclusion that we want, and then we're trying to prove that conclusion by handpicking our data. And that's never the way it used to be. Okay. You never started off with a conclusion. You may start off with a theory, but it was never, you never thought of it as a conclusion. You thought of it again as a theory,
Yeah.
as this is what I think's going on. Now let me try to prove that my thinking is wrong.
Well, that's one of the perfect examples of that is the hockey stick graph.
Yeah. hmm
You
Yeah.
know, when you look back at the rationality behind global warming back in the 60s and 70s when they first started with all of the panic about how the ice caps were going to melt, we were all going to drown, the earth was going to catch fire, we were going to
Well, in
be
the 70s, it was global cooling.
well, we were going to be burnt to a cinder and then freeze. Because the cloud, the soot was going to block out the sun. It was going to get cold. We'd be frozen, get into another ice age, and the mastodon would rule the earth. The hockey stick graph is the perfect example of how they fit the data to the agenda. Is that they said that if you looked at the temperatures of the earth, how they were remaining flat, and all of a sudden they started to spike, and then it's shaped like a hockey stick.
Yeah.
And then they looked at the world economy and they said, well, it kind of matches along the same lines of how the Industrial Revolution took place.
Yeah.
Everything was going, and then when the Industrial Revolution took place, that's what caused the temperature to go up.
Yeah. Complete
No,
crap.
the reason the Industrial Revolution was able to take place is because environmentally it became more friendly. Environments became more friendly so that human expansion could take place. We could take advantage of resources that we had not been able to take advantage of. And then population centers expanded, industry began to grow, and it was all related to how the weather was treating humanity, not how humanity was treating the weather. So they flipped it to match their idea. Oh, industry made the temperature go up. No, that's like saying that your tomatoes made the sunshine.
Yeah. But that was also skewed because they also deleted massive amounts of data to make that hockey stick. They
Yeah,
removed the Middle Ages mini ice age,
right. Well,
which is,
they found, like I said, they found their ideology,
yeah.
and they skewed the results to make it look like it fit.
Yeah.
And when you sit back and you look at it, I mean, when the guy who founded the Weather Channel is the leading guy out there in the world that tells you global warming is bullshit,
Yeah.
the guy's got 70 years experience in the field that he might know what he's talking about. And excuse me if I don't always trust the accuracy of thermometers that were produced in 1925 or 1850. I don't necessarily trust that some of those documents are going to be as accurate as what they might be today. So they base a lot of their science, a lot of their theories on stuff that they say, well, why don't you use the same equipment today? Well, it's obsolete. It's inaccurate. You can't get
Then
good readouts from it. So then why are you basing your data on the results that we used with the same instrumentation that you are now saying is obsolete and unreliable.
Exactly. But see, that whole conversation, when we've just talked about the elements of it that are weak or breaks the theory, that's called critical thinking. That's us actually thinking through the theory and working through the science and doing what we were taught to do, which is to question every theory and say, okay, what makes sense? What doesn't? And based on the data that you get back and the analysis that you can make, you can then say, okay, it has high or low credibility. It is reasonable or unreasonable. It is logical or illogical. This applies to everything in life. And the youth today don't have that. And I know the young people watching this are going to say, you're just, you're ageist. No, sorry, you just don't have the skills, period. And it's not their fault. You aren't taught. But it's going to hurt this entire nation.
And again, long ball.
Yeah, I get it.
All part of the plan. If you don't want people to think critically, you have to teach them not to think. And if you want to teach them not to think, it's going to take a couple of generations for that to sink home. Because if you have a generation of critical thinkers, and their children are non-critical thinkers, the critical thinkers are going to have influence on the non-critical thinkers to say, what the hell are you learning in school? Yeah. But by the time you wash it out a couple of generations and the parents are just as stupid as the kids, well, now you can control the kids. The only people who are actually thinking critically anymore are the people who are trying to eliminate it from the masses. They think critically. How do we get people to stop thinking? Because we are the authority. We don't want to be questioned. How do we do that? And they think critically, formulate a plan, institute the plan, and it takes a couple of generations for it to work, but eventually it does. And then you have a bunch of idiots who don't know how to use a can opener.
That's what it winds up being. And yes, Jan, you're correct. There were about 50 significant scientists globally, but who said that climate change isn't real science, that the science behind it isn't real. And it never has been. Which is why it constantly changes. The entire sector of science towards the climate has been a political movement almost from the start, because it always,
since at least the 1920s.
Well, right. Why is the only answer for climate change communism?
Why is it that it has political solutions and that's it? No other science, the only answer is politics. All other science, the answer is science.
Right. And of all the people that are contributing to the greenhouse gases and everything else, majority of the pollution, majority of everything that's coming out is coming from some of the poorest nations on Earth, but yet there's never a plan to have the poorest nations on Earth remedy their systems so they can stop polluting.
It's up to us to remedy their need.
Well, yeah, right. That's because they legitimately said, screw you, we're not going to do that, because if they don't try to continue to adapt to the new technology, their infrastructure goes to hell in a handbasket and their people die. There's a reason why the third world needs more energy, and they need to, because they need to build their infrastructure to protect their people, to keep them alive. There's a reason for that. And that's why you see that in particular in Africa, South America, certain parts of Southeast Asia. They're the biggest sources of greenhouse gases outside of China and India. And it's because they need the infrastructure. But the United States, we're leading the downward trend. And we have been since 2015, every year. You can't do better than us. I've said it many times. America doesn't have a CO2 or greenhouse gas problem. We're the solution. Stop bugging us about it. We've already fixed it. It's everyone else that's got the problem.
Yeah,
but again, that's critical thinking. That's looking at the data.
We contribute 6%. I think was the number of greenhouse gases. America contributes 6% of the greenhouse gases to the rest of the world.
Yes, but
So-
we've
but
we've
We're
reduced.
reducing it, but we're also on the hook for 90% of the cost of reducing greenhouse gases globally.
Yes, but we're also we reduce more greenhouse gases per year than all of Europe and the United Kingdom combined by 6 times.
Well,
That's
they had
6 times.
they had that Lurch guy, John Kerry, up
Yeah.
on Capitol Hill a couple of months ago, and he was saying that the Earth in the last 80,000 years has never been warmer.
Ha! That's not true.
It hasn't been warmer than it is now for 80,000 years.
He's out of
And
mind.
Thomas Massey was questioning him and said, "Why is it that you use this calendar that goes back 80,000 years instead of the ones that go back hundreds of thousands of years? Because if you look back 120,000 years ago, it was warmer than it is. If you look back 10 million years ago, it was even warmer than it is now by 30%. Why don't you use those numbers?" And he says, "Well, he says because industry wasn't there.
Wasn't there
Humans
120,000?
weren't walking the earth." So Thomas Massey said, "Well, what contributed to it going up 30% warmer than it is now?" And he says, "Geological phenomenon." So Thomas Massey said, "Well, did geology stop in the last 80,000 years? When humans showed up and geology stopped. So what? We haven't had a volcano. We haven't had a forest fire. We haven't had an earthquake. We haven't had a solar flare. We haven't had El Niños. We haven't had any warming of the currents or the tides or anything else like that. None of these things that contribute to the global. They again use the evidence that you have selectively to fit your narrative, and ignore everything else that debunks your narrative."
Yeah.
And then you say, "See, now you have a consolidation of all the scientists all agree." All is a very inclusive word.
And you notice, but when they say that, they never say they agree to what. What was the question you asked all scientists? That's a very important thing. What is the exact question that you asked them? Because I'm pretty sure the question you asked them,
Is the
Well,
climate changing?
yeah, if you
If
say
you-
is the climate changing, everyone on the planet has to say yes, because every day the climate changes.
Well, if given enough time, and resources, I can present a paper that says that oxygen is the number one cause of death for all human beings on Earth.
Yes, actually,
Well, how do you
oxygen is
say that? Well,
poisonous.
every human being has been exposed to it. Every human being has been forced to breathe it. And since every human being that has ever lived has consumed oxygen and died, therefore, oxygen must be the leading contributing factor to every single death that has ever occurred and that will occur. That's how they skew they find a commonality that there's no basis for it, and they'll turn around and they'll point to it as a conclusion.
Well, yeah, and they can make that because oxygen is actually poisonous to us. Pure oxygen will kill you.
Yeah, but again, it also we need. Carbon dioxide is bad for the planet.
No,
Without carbon dioxide,
there's no
you do
plants.
not oxygen, because the plants use the carbon dioxide and
Yep.
produce oxygen. Without carbon, did you ever wonder? You ever driving down a highway?
Yeah.
Like when you have the turning of the leaves.
Yeah.
And you look off in the distance, you see the mountaintops everywhere, and everything is this beautiful changing of color. You have the oranges, the browns, the reds, everything is changing color. But the highway that you're driving on, the median and both shoulders are always this lush green, this deep, dark green. Do you know why that is?
CO2 out of the cars. Actually, monoxide, but yeah.
Because
car.
the carbon monoxide being spewed by the traffic is being consumed by the plants closest to it, and they have a longer lifespan. They produce oxygen longer in higher quantities, much more abundant, and they last longer. Those are the healthiest friggin' plants you'll ever find, are the ones that are right next to the highway.
Yeah.
Right next to the highway. You can't turn around and say that carbon dioxide is going to kill the planet. You are a moron.
Yeah. That's politics. Again, this is how they use the politics. And again, but you're not supposed to be able to critically think about this. And the news media isn't going to report this. They're going to use the language to not lead you to that very obvious conclusion. And we have elected officials who are going to lie to us to our face, even as we see the data and the evidence right in front of us. Bidenomics works for who? Not anyone in America who's not politically connected. It doesn't work. There's no data that can prove that it works. All the data, all the real data, and when I say the real data, they keep pointing to, look, the unemployment rate. The unemployment rate doesn't determine whether or not you're in a good economy, bad economy, or even a recession. You need to look at things like the CPI, the inflation rate. You look at the number of small businesses. You look at the cost of goods. How much does it cost for rent, for milk, for essential items? That tells you what the economy is. Not the unemployment rate, which is based on the number of phone calls that are made by the government and has a component, which is reported on, called the not in the labor force. These are 100 million people they don't count. Doesn't mean they're working. They just don't count them.
And again, by design. And give you an example. Why would they want to tank the economy? Why would they want to make people hurt? Well, because this way more people sign up for government programs. More people are dependent upon government, which means more people have to do what government says, because if you don't do what government says, you lose your benefits. And a perfect example of that right now is what, if you looked at last week, the education department decided under Biden administration rules that they were going to start withholding funds from schools that have hunting classes and firearm safety classes. If a school in America has a program, an after-school program and a lot of schools still, believe it or not, they do. Like in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, we had rifles in schools, and you could go into your gymnasium and shoot 22s at 3:30 in the afternoon. Now, if your school has a program that's affiliated with any sort of firearm safety or hunting, they're going to be denied federal funding until they eliminate those programs. It's not going to be very long before they do the same thing with schools that have an affiliation with the Boy Scouts.
Yeah, it's already coming down the pack, and Boy Scouts are in the Boy Scouts, so they're getting rid of that whole thing.
If you don't do what we tell you, you're going to lose the funding. And how do you control the people? By making them dependent upon government. How do you do that? Destroy the economy.
Yeah. I got to ask you a question, Mike. Mike, that's a joke site, right? Is that a joke web page?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
But
it had to be. It had to be.
If you actually read through this,
I did. I was seeing it.
DHMO contributes to global warming.
By the way, I just had to stop because, basic first-year chemistry in college, you'll get to learn some of the names, and I've taken more than just basic chemistry. So it should be dihydride monoxide is actually the chemical formulation, the name of it. But it's just so funny that they do dihydrogen monoxide to try and it's pseudoscience, pseudo wording.
Yeah.
And they're putting it as DHMO. Oh my God, it sounds like this complex drug. It's H2O, folks. Come on. Let's think about it. Just read in language. Go ahead.
But because of the lack of critical thinking, that we have in the United States, somebody could easily be convinced that DHMO is the most dangerous thing in the world.
There's
Well,
been videos.
They
on-
had 30% of students at Harvard University sign a friggin' petition to
Yeah.
have hydrogen monoxide banned from the campus.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Which is just, it just tells you how stupid they are. Or rather,
Well,
how
they-
programmed they are.
Well, they
I-
let David
I-
Hogg be a student there, so
I belonged to Speech Masters for a while. And actually, I gave the speech that this very site kind of goes over.
Mhm.
Okay. Explaining all the bad things of dihydric monoxide or dihydrogen monoxide. I called it dihydric monoxide
Mhm.
when I gave my speech. And probably 9 out of 10 people in my Toastmasters group believed that we needed to ban this chemical
Oh my
until I told them that it was H2O. 9 out of 10 people.
Michael, beware of any group that would have you as a member.
But
Number one. And I think they just proved it.
yeah, 9 out of 10 people believed that this chemical was so dangerous that it needed to be banned.
Well,
Oh God.
you know where they need a lot of it? You know where they need a lot of dihydrogen monoxide? In Maui.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to divert too much off topic, but Jan brought it up in the conversation over there about what's going on over in
Yeah, we do need to touch a
50th
little bit
Street
on that.
and
Yeah.
what's happening over there. You want to talk conspiracy theory? That is the mountains of Maui are lush and lavish with the conspiracy theory run amok, and some of them actually sound kind of plausible if you think about it. But man, how do you get the president of the United States turn around and say he's going to give another $6 billion to our friends over there in the Ukraine, and what did he say? 400 million in relief for Maui.
$700 works out to $700 approximately
one-
per person.
A
One time.
one-time payment of $700
Per household. Keywords per household, not per person, per household.
Does anybody have an idea how much a Big Mac costs in Hawaii?
About 3 times what it costs in New York City.
Right. So that's $700 per household. Yeah, that's going to go far.
It's
Yeah.
an island. They
a 2x4.
import everything.
Yeah, a 2x4 in Maui is like $65
Yeah.
for a 2x4. Tell that to the guy whose little shanty just burned down. That it's going to cost him, $600,000 to rebuild his 20-foot by 15-foot house. On land that the governor says they're probably going to take the land.
Yeah. They're going to go in and take it all, not buy it out, just take it all over.
They're going to take because you can see because they can, because now that the fire has ravaged through it, they can come in and condemn it. They can condemn the land, say it's unsafe for humans to be, it's inhospitable. It's unsafe for humans to live there. It could flare up at any time. The land must be condemned. It must be razed. It must be plowed over, plowed under, and everything else at the same time that he signed the Green New Deal so they can start with the 15-minute cities.
There are volcanoes on these islands. Did we forget that? It's always been unsafe for human beings. It's in
Yeah.
the middle of the ocean with a volcano.
Well, the theory is right now that you have a lot of these media type billionaires
Yeah.
that have been wanting for nothing more for decades and decades to be able to buy up the land that is owned by the indigenous peoples,
Mm-hmm.
the island natives of Hawaii that have been in their families since the days of King Kamehameha, or I believe that was the guy's name.
Something like yeah, I believe it is.
yeah. That these people have refused to be taking off of their land. This is not like Native Americans. These are people that are now American citizens,
Mm-hmm.
fully recognized by the United States of America. Given endowed with all the same constitutional rights as the mainland and the contiguous states. So how do you get the land from them if they will not sell it? If they can't sell it, you can't force them to sell it, and you can't use eminent domain because you can't point to any sort of public infrastructure improvement plan that you're going to utilize to better the island. How do you get the land from these people? The only way to get it from them is to condemn it. And what more convenient way to condemn the land than to burn it?
Like nothing has ever burned on the island before. Again, an island has a volcano. They've never had fires before. And by the way, the fire started because they didn't clean the jungle. They did the same thing that California did. They didn't maintain
wildland grass.
Yeah, if you don't have a forest maintenance program, if you don't have switchbacks cut and you don't have fire lanes cut and you don't do controlled burns from time to time, these things are going to happen. It's the same reason why you have naturally occurring.
Why California has such bad wildfires.
Why do you think they trigger avalanches? They trigger avalanches so that they happen on purpose rather than happening spontaneously. It's how you can control the avalanches so that you don't have people dying unnecessarily. The same way that forest management goes in and they clear sections out so that if a fire does start, it's more easily contained. It doesn't spread as rapidly. You can fight it locally and you preserve the rest of the resources. You sacrifice some of the resources for the betterment of it so that you can preserve the rest of it. When you have groups like the Sierra Club and stuff like that, that if a tree falls, you have to leave it there. Now, Vass and I lived in the southern tier of New York in 2006 when we had the worst flooding that New York State had ever seen. Vass and I were both witness to houses that were 25 feet above the normal level of the rivers being completely submerged.
It went over the flood wall, over the bank. It went into the regular road.
You could ride a boat over the dams in Shenango County and not realize you just crossed the dam. And these dams are 80 feet tall.
There were bridges. That were underwater.
It was absolutely horrendous. And when you sat back and you look at it, number one, the river, they can't dredge the river because it's already at leveled shale. They can't dredge it out. They can't widen it because you have towns that are right on the river banks. So it means you have to move towns out of the way. So if you can't do the things that you would normally do, then you do the things that you can do. And one of the things that you can do is make sure that your tributaries are clear, that when you do have debris that falls in there, that you prevent damming from occurring so that you don't have flash flooding. There's a lot of mitigation that you can do that might not eliminate the threat of the flood, but at least it'll curtail it enough where it'll be more manageable and your losses are going to be reduced.
Right. You minimize it. You minimize it within reason.
Right. The same thing applies with forest management. And when you have environmental groups like what we had in Shenango County, if a tree fell in a tributary and you wanted to move the tree, the state would come in and tell you can't move the tree out of the tributary. You have to leave it there. You say, yeah, but it's causing a backup. It's causing a jam. It's creating wetlands where wetlands never were. Now you have ponds and lakes and rivers being dammed up unnecessarily. And it all contributed to these huge floods that we had. Forest management, same thing. If you don't clear it out, you're going to lose everything. And that's what they did. Now, some people in Hawaii are saying this was done on purpose so that they could purposely pull these people off the land so the state can take control over it and then sell it to the people that have wanted to take it over for decades. And that's the people with money.
I've heard that, and I also, and Jan was mentioning, there are articles now that, well, this is because of the electric company. Well, let me debunk that part. You know what? A transformer could have blown up. The high density electric
High
wires
tension wires.
could have fell right on top of a pile of dead leaves, and someone could have thrown a gas tank full of gasoline right on top of all of that, happening at all the same moment. And the problem still is forest management, because no matter how it starts burning, the problem is how far and how fast it has been spreading. And that's not the problem of the electric company. That's the environmentalist, as Frank was just mentioning, and same principles.
No, 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 no,
What?
no,
Are
Michael.
you ready for bed?
What?
It's not the environmentalists.
Sure, it is.
No, it's not. It's big oil. It's climate change.
Yeah,
No.
yeah.
No. You're both wrong. It's Trump.
No, yeah. Well, ultimately, everything's Trump.
Trump owns a golf course in Hawaii, doesn't he?
Probably.
Well, he might not. I don't know. But friggin', he owns all the golf courses in Hawaii.
Doesn't have to be true. Just say it
He
is.
drilled a hole while fracking that tapped into a volcano, and a lava flow got into the forest, and that's what caused the fire.
And he did that so he
And it was
collected
huge.
money on his golf course to pay for his mounting legal bills.
And I could see someone on the left just going, "Yeah, I believe that. I understand. That's true." You can hear them say that. You can just hear it.
Do you remember when they had the problem on Jupiter? When they
What?
said, you remember the big storm on Jupiter a couple of years ago? They said the
Mhm.
storm on Jupiter, that it had like contracted in size and looked like it was starting to rotate in the opposite direction.
Yeah, I remember.
And they had somebody on
The Great Red Spot.
MSNBC. Someone on MSNBC said, "Could this be a result of global warming?"
What?
I shit you not. I shit you not. They straight faced. I think it was Jake Tapper. I think it was him. Said, "Could this be a result of global warming?" And then a couple of years later, there was an asteroid that was supposed to.
Wait a minute. What was the response? I can't imagine. I am dumbfounded here.
The science, the astrophysicist that was on the show, I think tried everything they could to not break character when they said, "No, this does."
Because I would have been
This has
laughing.
nothing to do with global warming. And then a couple of years later, there was an asteroid that was that one that we went and we took particles off of. We shot a rocket at it and we blew a part of it off so we could analyze it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they said that something about the trajectory of it. Well, had the trajectory been changed by 1 degree, to 800,000 miles away, it would have impacted Earth. And he said, "Well, would global warming have had anything to do with changing the trajectory?"
Really?
Yes, I swear to God. Somebody asked about global warming and a friggin' asteroid.
It's called space, people. It's called space. There is no climate in space.
Sure, there is.
No one's worried about CO2 in space. Really, that's not your biggest problem. That's not your concern in space. CO2, not even an issue. Oh my God. They would actually, I don't even know where to begin with that kind of.
Well, that's climate change is why the moon's moving further away every year.
Did someone actually say that too?
It would not surprise me.
I mean, I'm not surprised. They blame everything on climate change, and none of it makes sense because it's stupid. And it's like, no, that's just dumb. Again, Hawaii, just like California.
All right, hold on.
Oh no!
I found it. I don't have the video clip of it, but I found the transcript. I found the transcript from this. This happened. CNN anchor questions whether global warming was to blame for an asteroid.
Oh my
Uh,
God.
the threat of global warming may stretch so far beyond Earth that it affects meteorites millions of miles away, at least according to one CNN anchor. Talk about something else that's falling from the sky, and
No.
that is an asteroid. What's coming our way? Is this an effect of perhaps global warming? Or is this just some sort of meteoric occasion? This was the question by CNN's Deborah Farrick. And of all people that she decided to ask, it was Bill Nye, the science guy.
So she asked
Oh,
the
yeah.
fake scientist a fake
Yeah,
question about.
he's
All right, now is Bill Nye
He's
for
a
the science
joke.
guy. For those who don't know, Bill Nye, the science guy, has a degree, I believe, in
Electrical engineering.
electrical engineering, but he did not rise to prominence because of his degree in electrical engineering. He rose to prominence because he is an actor.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And won
The
the
kid
part
shows.
of the host of the kids show called Bill Nye the Science Guy. He's not a scientist. Bill Nye is not a scientist, but he plays one on TV.
Yeah. For
He
children.
stayed, right. He stayed at one of those Holiday Inn Expresses, so he knows. But to Bill Nye's credit, when asked about the most ridiculous question that you could possibly ask about a meteorite, Bill Nye, I think, said, "No, this doesn't have anything to do with global warming."
Wow.
All right, Bill Nye is apparently the CNN anchor is also somebody who lacks critical thinking.
Is she still working? She had to be fired. I would hope they fired her. She's such that the standards
I
can't be that low.
I don't know. I don't know.
What's her name?
She's an American
Deborah.
journalist and national correspondent for CNN and CNN International.
Bill Nye was basically the spinoff from Mr. Wizard.
Yeah. Mr. Wizard was smarter.
Mm-hmm. But that's basically what it was. Okay, Bill Nye replaced Mr. Wizard.
I'm sorry. I'm still reading the transcript from that conversation. Good Lord.
Dan, there is some evidence that it was a power line, not necessarily because it was out of date, but one of the things that they're saying is that a tree possibly could have collapsed some power lines, causing sparks, which ignited the grass. And I guess there's some video and some data from some home monitoring, electrical monitoring, that correlate together, kind of suggesting that this was that the first fire was started due to that reason.
Yeah, but the problem isn't the way that the fire. It doesn't matter how the fire starts.
No, it doesn't.
The reason why we have the problem now is because they didn't manage the forest. That's why it spread so much. They're distracting people with, "Ooh, who started the fire?" Not why did the fire spread. The problem isn't how the fire started. The problem is how the fire spread, and they're distracting. They're shifting the goalposts in front of people, and they're trying to make people think about a different problem. Someone they can blame rather than saying, "Oh, well, it's because of environmentalism. It's because we didn't take care of the forest." Same problem that we have in California, the same problem that we have in Canada, the same problem we have seen in other parts of the nation and the world. You're not doing the basic management. So you created a crisis because you were afraid to do the basics. Oh, don't want to piss off those progressive environmentalists. The climatologist said, don't fix the forest. Okay, now we've got everything burning down.
Here's what our illustrious government has provided to Maui so far.
Nothing.
500 federal personnel to assist residents in their greatest time of need. In the immediate aftermath of the fire, Coast Guard, Navy, and maritime search and rescue operations, U.S. Army helicopters supported fire suppression efforts. As fire containment efforts continued, FEMA and its federal partners continued response efforts. FEMA has deployed more than 140 urban search and rescue personnel who have been integrated with the Maui Fire Department. In Maui, FEMA has provided 50,000 meals, 75,000 liters of water, 5,000 cots, and 10,000 blankets and shelter supplies to the county government for distribution. Hold on a second. That's with a population on Maui of 165,386. Okay, they provided that.
50,000 meals for 165,000 people.
Yeah.
So less than one meal,
And 75,000 liters of water.
which is not nearly enough. That's less than 1 liter of
Well,
water per person.
Yeah,
That's a one. They got water all around them. They're fine.
It's a little over 3 liters to the gallon. So you figure that's only about 25,000 gallons of water.
That's not nowhere nearly enough for a person in one day. You're talking about they basically provided a snack that would not last one meal.
5,000 cots and 10,000 blankets and shelter supplies. Okay, FEMA has also authorized critical needs assistance, which provides a one-time payment of $700 per household to applicants who were displaced from their homes and have critical needs.
All right, now
Small Business Administration has dozens of staff on the island and has begun making low-interest federal disaster loans.
just for a reference, we have aircraft carriers in Hawaii. I'm assuming.
Yeah.
The average U.S. aircraft carrier can produce 200,000 gallons of potable water a day.
Yeah.
So they have we have the resources, the tools, and the technology at hand right there in Hawaii to be able to produce more than what is being given.
Easily.
Okay. USDA Food and Nutrition Service approved Maui's request for impacted child nutrition programs and such, and SNAP program benefits. FEMA disaster survivors assistance team members are deploying to shelters and helping people register for federal assistance. Department of Health and Human Services Secretary approved public health emergency effective retroactively from August 8th through November 6th. 17 specialists from the Department of Health and Human Services Disaster Mortuary Operational Response Team are on Maui. Local and national voluntary organizations active in disasters. Okay, that isn't even federal. The White House has nothing to do with these guys. Okay, Army Corps of Engineers helping clear roads, stabilize electric service, and working with the EPA on removal of hazardous waste essential to the recovery work in the affected areas. Forest Service management teams and wildfire liaisons integrated with the state to help identify resources, equipment, and additional personnel needed to fully extinguish fires and prevent flare-ups. Fire administration is also working with local fire departments, blah, blah. DOD through U.S. Indo-PACOM is actively supporting the federal response by helping move supplies across the state and is providing assistance with fire suppression activities. INDOPACOM is also taking actions to move their response command and control personnel forward to the island of Maui. So, in a sense, they really haven't done much.
Well, again, if you want to look at government bureaucracy, you look at so-and-so had to approve a request by. So-and-so had to approve a request by. Why is that? You have a situation like this. What is this request bullshit? What is this process bullshit? Just
Paperwork.
do it. Yeah. It's the redundancy of government again, because now somebody has to approve something that's going to save somebody else's life or something else like that. It's so ridiculous. Hey, I want to share something real quick. We're getting on 11 o'clock. I'm going to be wrapping this up. So at least I'm going to be wrapping it up. So I'm tired, but I want to just
Nigh and talk about something else that's falling from the sky, and that is an asteroid. What's coming our way? Is this an effect of perhaps global warming, or is this just some meteoric occasion?
I just wanted to tell you, no, I was not bullshitting you when I told you that the CNN anchor wanted to know if the asteroid was a result of global warming.
And she's still working there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she got promoted. She's no longer working the news desk locally. She's now international and political international.
If she's not smart enough to understand that, if she's that dumb, or that progressive, that much of a propagandist, that she would ask that question, there's no way she should be dealing with anything on international news.
Again, she's reading from a teleprompter.
That doesn't kill your intelligence.
No. But that means that somebody else was stupid enough to ask the question, and then that she is stupid enough to parrot the question. So now you have two very stupid people. You can't just lay the blame on one stupid person. You have to lay the blame on two stupid people. And then you have to look and say, well, who was the real stupid person? Because somebody had to approve the script. Yeah. And that would have been the producer or the director of the show for that segment. So now you have four very stupid people.
At least.
And then the one smart guy is Bill Nye. Bill Nye was the smart guy in that scenario. So
an actor.
It
makes no sense. It makes no sense. And people think this is serious.
All right. I'm going to do a quick plug for an upcoming video that we got coming out for the range report.
Yep.
How many of you guys have your phone have your little biometric button on the back of it that allows you to unlock your phone with the touch of a finger?
Almost everyone has phones doing that. It's a standard thing now.
All right. Now, how many times have you picked up your phone to unlock your phone by using your finger and it says print not recognized, print not recognized? and you have to do that like 6 or 8 times, and then it says phone officially locked, and then you have to go back to either entering your code or your finger swipe or anything else like that. I'm sure that's happened. I know it happens to me at least weekly with my phone. Well, one of the things that we've been looking to test out on the range report was the technology that is being employed in gun safes that is being pushed by a lot of our political elites as far as like the safe gun storage laws that they're trying to push, that says that they want you to have your guns locked away when you're at home so that you don't have access to your firearm, and that if you're in your vehicle, you have to have your guns locked up in a vehicle so you don't have, so that if you get out of your car, nobody has access to your gun. Number one, don't leave your gun in the car. One of the things that they've been trying to promote is gun safes that are biometrically controlled. And I am of the belief, and I haven't tested this myself yet. I have always been of the belief that if you have the tool at your disposal that is going to be the deciding factor in whether you and your family escape a harmful situation or fall victim to a harmful situation, you don't want to have that tool, the access to that tool, being dependent upon some sort of technology that can go afoul. And one of them is biometrics.
Yeah.
And all these gun safes now have biometrically controlled locks that they'll allow you to store a certain number of fingerprints, so that you just touch the box. Within a second, the box opens up and you have access to your gun so that you can defend your family.
If the battery's working.
If the battery's working. And if the battery doesn't work, there's a backup for them, and it's usually a keypad that you can punch in a code and have access to the gun. But that's also battery operated. So
Yeah.
then the third option is that there's a key that you can use to unlock the thing. Well, the Range Report has come into possession of two very, very nice biometrically controlled gun safes.
Right.
And we are going to put them to the test this week. We are going to be filming a video of common situations in which you may be required to have expedient control of your firearm, and how long it takes, and with what frequency these things actually work, and what happens when they don't.
Oh, I can imagine one of the tests. Most common one, you've got grease/dirt on your hands because, I don't know, yard work, whatever, cleaning something in the
Well,
house.
get cut on your finger.
Not cut in your finger, same thing. And you got blood, and then you hit the biometric. Will it work?
Well, what about this?
What about what?
And there is actually legislation in some jurisdictions that will start requiring these.
Yeah, because they want people to die. Oh, yeah, I heard about that. Yeah.
The smart guns. We have a lot of smart gun technology now. Unfortunately, and believe me, we have tried to get in contact with three companies that are the major manufacturers of smart gun technology, and we've asked them if we could participate in some sort of trials or have access to some sort of prototypes or anything. We did go to SHOT Show. We did have access to something called the round counter gun, which is a gun that has a little. It's an addition that you put on your Glock, because they only make it for Glock. That has a little digital screen on the back of it that tells you how many rounds you have left in the magazine as you expel the rounds. A little LCD screen, illuminated LCD screen pops up, and they were saying that they were going to try and incorporate some sort of smart gun technology into that, where the user would only have effect of the gun if they were wearing a particular ring that has a RFID chip inside of it that's recognized by the grip module that allows the trigger to be actuated.
Oh, God, so many problems with that.
A lot of that is pie in the sky.
Yeah.
But the one thing that is becoming very prominent in homes right now is the biometrically controlled safes.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to be filming a very extensive video. We're going to use a couple of different people in a couple of different scenarios to try and find out whether or not you should put your family security on a technology, and whether or not it's going to be good for you.
That's going to be a good video.
So we're putting that together now. We're going to be blocking out the names of the manufacturer of the safes, because we don't know how the tests are going to go. We haven't performed them. We haven't even programmed the safes yet. They arrived today. We're going to be trying them out. We don't want to besmirch any company or sing any company's praises. This is just we have two different kinds of design safe that have two different technologies, and they're the most common technologies that are available. And we're going to be putting them to the test, and we're just going to be using them as a baseline, to decide. Now, these, like I said, they're both very good quality. That's all I can tell you is they're very good quality safes as far as their repute. They're reputed to be some of the better ones on the market. So we're going to
Okay.
try these out, and we want to put those findings together, and we want to get them to you guys, and you could determine whether or not you want to pop for, is that $200-$400 you spend going to be a lifesaver or a life taker? That's So
That's the title.
So I'm gonna be signing out because I got dogs to feed, cats to
Well,
water.
we all are.
Yeah.
Okay.
Same
I
here.
mean, as Michael proves every Sunday, they're literally, I mean, we could cover this 24/7, 365 days a year and still never touch upon everything that is going on right now that is impacting us. I mean, news came out today that Twitter is removing the block feature off of X.
What? Really? Oh God.
Yeah, Twitter is removing block feature.
That's a dumb.
And you want to talk about people up in arms? You should hear the left.
Yeah, I would imagine.
I block people on Twitter because I just don't want to see their bullshit. It's not that it's because I don't need to see 65 tweets a day from the same mindless schmuck that I do not follow. I do not follow this guy. Why is he in my feed?
Yeah, I'll give you an example.
What you got?
Elon Musk is going to remove the block feature. I've blocked 29,224 people, many of whom are racist, sexist, and hateful. Twitter can be a cesspool for women, especially for minorities. Taking away one of our last remaining protections on the 103rd anniversary of the 19th Amendment is so on brand.
Wait a second.
What?
This is probably somebody that has absolutely no problem with some fully intact male and address going in and using the bathroom with their daughter. But they're going to talk about protections for women.
Yeah.
Okay,
I find that so
That's
sad.
one.
Well, at least I can call Alec Baldwin names again, and he might see it.
I guarantee you they're going to
Edie
get.
Hassan says, bring back the Nazis. Let them get verified. Put ads next to them and get rid of the block feature. What could possibly go wrong?
You know what? They're so worried about. First of all, one, you can ignore them. It's not a big deal. And two, the world does. It's Twitter. Who cares?
Whose puppy's crying?
Mine.
All right, go take your dog out.
Yeah.
Well, with that, and evidently Michael's puppy needs attention, so
Yeah.
We're going to go ahead and sign off. Don't forget, folks, that L1F.us is where you can find us. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Just look for the Liberty First Foundation. Join our group on Facebook. We have some interesting discussions go on there from time to time. Also, we are in the middle of our membership drive for 2023. We are still short a few members, so we need your help in getting people. Okay, remember, this membership doesn't go into our pockets. What this membership money does is it helps us to get the word out. Okay, it helps us pay for our website. It helps us pay for features like what we do on StreamYard, stuff like that. Okay, so none of this money is going into our pockets. It's going into helping us educate the people about what's going on in the United States and about the United States Constitution. Okay, that's what we are utilizing this membership money for. So we only have a limited reach, but with your help and with you liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing, that helps us get the word out. And the more we get the word out, the more we can hopefully try to stop what's going on in the United States. though we may have already passed the state of critical mass and maybe too late, but we can at least try. Okay, I know I'm not going down without a fight. I don't know about anybody, the rest. I know the rest of us on the show program aren't going down without a fight. The rest of the United States, I can't speak for. Okay, a lot's going to be telling in what happens over the next few years. If we don't start the right course, things are going to get a lot worse. So with that, I want to say have a great week, guys. We will be back here next Friday night, 9 p.m. Eastern time. Invite your friends, invite others. Okay, we look forward to the conversations that we have in our chat, and we thank everybody in our chat. With that, we'll see you next week. Thank you, everybody.
Not everyone.
Good night, folks. Be safe, shoot straight.